Both Aaron Donald and Khalil Mack. Dare I ask you to choose who's the more dominant defensive player, Coach, if you had to take one?
Well, I've got to go with Aaron Donald. And the reason for that is 16.5 sacks. I mean, an inside guy, they're completely different. You know, Khalil's an outside rusher. You've got Aaron Donald's an inside rusher. And, you know, it's easier to double team guys in there. He splits double teams. And forget about putting one guy on him. Everything about him is quick. Teddy talked about his hands, his feet. Everything about him is quick and explosive. And, you know, we still have 4 more games left, the last quarter of the season, and he's already at 16.5 sacks.
I mean, I'll talk about how special Khalil Mack is also because of what he does and the way that, you know, he's got one of the best posts in terms of the one-arm post. When he's speed to power, he puts one arm on the defender, and then he, with strength, can still just throw an offensive tackle. So his strength is amazing off the edge. Ball savvy. Both of these players are ball savvy in terms of where it is and what really attacking the quarterback and bringing the quarterback to the ground now in today's day and age. It's not about body weight and intimidation and bringing him down. It's about the ball, taking the ball away. They're both good at that. Aaron Donald, though, he's on a different level in terms of production. They both do impressive things in terms of what they do against blockers, but Aaron Donald and the numbers that coach is talking about, the frequency of how quickly he gets to the quarterback, I mean, the amount of double teams that he's facing, what he does is amazing, and I haven't seen it before in terms of all of the moves that he has. It's in speed, power, spin, club, those type of things, the counters. It's been amazing to watch him this season.
When Teddy talks about the ball, you know, let's not forget both these teams are at the top of our league in takeaways and the turnover ratio at number 12 and plus 11. And that's why they're leading their divisions respectively.
Well, it's interesting. We always say defense wins championships and offense sells tickets. I'd pay to see these two play. I mean, they are highlight-worthy players on just about every time, you know, they snap the ball.
I would say that Aaron Donald is obviously closer to the point of attack and can benefit from the fact that Ndamukong Suh is right beside him. Obviously, Khalil Mack has Danny Trevathan, and you see that as well. But I just finished covering the Giants Chicago Bears game, and what I thought was interesting about that matchup, when you look at the fact that the Bears are getting ready to play the Rams, is that the Bears came into that game ranked second against the run, just allowing 81 rush yards per game, and then they gave up 125 to Saquon. We know that Saquon is special, but when you look ahead to the fact that they're getting ready to face
Daddy's boy.
Yeah.
Edwin Moses, hurdler, Saquon Barkley. But when you look at the fact that they're getting ready to face the Rams and you got a guy like Todd Gurley, you have got to shore up the run. So when I talked to Danny Trevathan in the locker room, I asked, does this team still have the swag? Especially getting your kind of rear ends, you know, upset by the Giants. He said, the swag is alive. We still have the swag.
The swag is alive.
No talks about Ndamukong Suh with Aaron Donald, but Akeem Hicks also needs to be mentioned for the Chicago Bears, the thing that he's done. And more on the ball in terms of what we're talking about. Coaches can tell us defenders so many times in terms of going after the ball and stripping the ball, but to have it in the same room in terms of how it's done, in terms of such a high level, in terms of Donald and Mack and how they're ball savvy and taking away. You see that, and then they're making other players also aware of it in their play.
All right, listen, different question. Obviously, these two don't face each other. That's not the point. And matchups factor into things, as we talk about on Thursdays usually. Who has a bigger impact Sunday night in particular?
I'd go with Donald in terms of the bigger impact. So now if we're going scheme-wise in terms of going against the Los Angeles Rams and Khalil Mack, and I'll say that they use play action so well and how it gives usually Jared Goff an extra half second or a second in terms of protection, and it makes it a little bit easier on the offensive line on how they protect for Goff, that I think Mack would have a little bit more of a problem getting to the quarterback as quickly as Donald does from either the 3 technique or inside.
And can I just say this, too, just having been in that locker room just on Sunday, you can tell that locker room was really somber. And one of the things that they kept saying is that we could have played a lot better than that. So having come off that recent loss, I think that will help refine them, iron sharpening iron, in terms of going into that game, knowing that they can be humbled. And if they don't bring their best, that, you know, a defeat can happen. And that will be most recent for the Chicago Bears, although the Rams have lost also to the Saints.
Yeah, I agree with Justin.
I love iron sharpening iron.
I did.
Exactly.
I was just going to say that.
Yes.
Are we talking about iron sharpening iron?
Listen, iron sharpens iron.
Take that. Listen. listen, we will have live reports from both Chicago and Los Angeles coming up a little bit later. I don't know if they'll have that, but they'll have something, that's for sure. As I told you before, we will touch on all 32 teams, or at least make every effort to do that during NFL Live. We've covered 6, TB. We've got 26 to go as we make our way across the league. The AFC playoff race close. It's close heading into Week 14. Each team in the hunt has a crucial matchup this weekend. We'll talk about that. And pull up a seat, have a cup, sit down with us, Josina Anderson and a cup of Joe, as she gives us the inside look at the Redskins' choice to pass on Colin Kaepernick.
Live is brought to you by Pizza Hut. No one out-pizzas the Hut. And Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
We continue with press coverage from our Jets reporter Rich Cimini. Sam Darnold, the quarterback, of course, the first quarterback to take reps in team drills, an indication he may be making his way back after an injury. Redskins coach Jay Gruden said it was true his team did discuss Colin Kaepernick, but opted against pursuing the quarterback because they'd have to change too much of their offense. With only 4 weeks left in the season, Gruden said Washington decided to go in a different direction.
It's football, strictly football. Like I said, when you're talking about a backup quarterback this late in the game, you want to have somebody with a similar skill set than the quarterback that you have. Not that Colin can't do some of the things that I'm talking about, but somebody with a little bit of familiarity. That's why we went with Sanchez. Had this been week 1, maybe it would probably be a greater possibility, but since it's week 13 with 4 games to go, not a lot of time to really get a brand new quarterback and new system installed and taught in a couple days of practice. So he's been talked about and discussed. But we'll probably go a different direction.
Well, that's where we will start as we sit down for a much-needed cup of Joe. It is that time of the afternoon with Josina Anderson. Look, you just heard what Jay Gruden had to say, but I know you've talked to some other folks as well. What do you hear about those discussions regarding the Redskins and Colin Kaepernick?
Well, first and foremost, I was told last night that they are expected to move forward with free agent quarterback Josh Johnson, who, of course, has experience with Jay Gruden in Tampa in 2008 when he was an offensive assistant there, in 2013 in Cincy when he was the offensive coordinator. And the highlight, the emphasis has been the familiarity that Josh Johnson has with the team. Also, when they picked Mark Sanchez, who had the familiarity with Matt Cavanaugh, who's the offensive coordinator. But I said, why not Kaepernick? And the source said, Josine, I'm not going there. And then I said, but why not bring him in for a workout? And the first thing that they said was, I do not believe that there's going to be a team that is going to sign Colin Kaepernick with 4 games to go, who's been on a 2-year hiatus and coming off of the street. Josh Johnson at least has been in a training camp with the Giants since 2017, but he hasn't thrown a pass since 2011. Colin Kaepernick at least has thrown a pass since 2016. And still, they said, this story is more so for the media. You guys talk about it more than we hear from Colin Kaepernick. And still going back to at least the experience. Right now, Colt McCoy and Mark Sanchez have only completed 54% of their passes to wide receivers and have had 4 interceptions to the wide receivers in 2 games. Alex Smith had 5 interceptions in 10 games. So you even look at the production that they're getting from the people that they're picking and ask that question. And lastly, the source said, Josina, we are just not caving into that story.
All right, fair enough. Again, they are without Alex Smith. They are now without Colt McCoy, who was also injured, so they are in need of a quarterback. The Vikings lost to the Patriots last week. That doesn't exactly put them in elite company. They have a lot of keepers there, but they did seem to struggle in the second half offensively. What are some of the issues they're dealing with?
Yeah, well, I talked to a source last night, and in particular, they pointed out how they did not do well in the fourth quarter. They also talked about the fact that they didn't run the ball like they wanted to. Dalvin Cook had 5 rushes for 64 yards in the first half, had 1 carry for 0 yards in the fourth quarter, not what you're looking for. And what was interesting about that is that it was kind of the first time that I heard this source kind of express a little irritation with the play calling from the offensive coordinator, DeFilippo. I have not heard that before. You know, they were always kind of backing them and saying that they didn't necessarily miss Pat Shurmur. So that was the first time I heard that. And lastly, they talked about the turnovers in the fourth quarter. Cannot be making those mistakes. Obviously, just highlighting the fact that there's a little bit loss of a focus. You're seeing an increased rate of interceptions also from Kirk Cousins. And lastly, they talked about Adam Thielen averaging over 100 receiving yards in the first 6 games, and that is down to about 60 now in their losing streak so far.
All right, the Jets lost another tough game, this time to the Titans, but it was an interesting reaction from Todd Bowles after the game, who said that this loss would stick with him for the rest of his life. Is there more to this?
Well, it's such a mouthful with the Jets because there's so much going on behind the scenes with this team. And you heard Jamal Adams express this in a quote that Rich Cimini put on his Twitter page, talking about the fact that there needs to be changes. Todd Bowles isn't the problem. There are other problems in the building. And he was planning on sharing this input with the front office. And I talked about this before in terms of my sources pointing certain irritations with the selection and the offensive coordinator the last 2 years, and how Todd Bowles is seemingly bearing the brunt of that, and talking about the fact that Jeremy Bates has not been able to get Jermaine Kearse, and also Robbie Anderson involved like they were in the previous year when they were having a career high, averaging 109 combined, and that being down to 54 right now in their current losing streak as well.
They got a young quarterback. He got injured. They got a lot of questions in the coaching ranks. Just a tough time, it would seem, for the Jets.
Yeah.
Well, more than a year after trading for him, the Bills have made a decision to part ways with wideout Kelvin Benjamin. He was a first-round pick by the Panthers in 2014. He's in the final year of his rookie deal. Benjamin caught 39 passes for 571 yards and 2 touchdowns in 18 games for Buffalo. It has been a struggle for Benjamin to get anything going this season. He's really struggled to separate from opposing defenders. He's averaging just 1.7 yards of separation when targeted. That is the lowest mark in the NFL among players with at least 50 targets. We continue to track our progress as we make our way through all 32 teams. We have touched on 9. That means 23 to go. Plenty of time as we talk about every team in the National Football League. The Ravens currently hold the 6th wildcard spot in the AFC, but there are 4 teams in the hunt. It's time to get wild on NFL Live.